Welcome to the 8 Billion Project, where we're on a mission to make an impact by discovering and sharing the purpose of every person on this planet. I'm your host, Lisa Florida. Enjoy today's episode. Hi, everyone. Welcome to the 8 Billion Podcast. I am your host, Lisa Florida, and today we've got a very special guest. She is a soul-led visionary leader, feels safe, solid, and secure to share their magic and with the world, and make more money with ease and flow. As a professionally certified and credentialed numerologist and intuitive success and mental fitness coach, she delivers insanely powerful insights that give you radical permission to show up in your power and fulfill your purpose in this world. Through her life-changing coaching, inner circles, energy readings, and forecasts, and her book, Decide, Choose Your Own Path, she's here to shake up her approach to business and life. When she's not inspiring women around the globe to make more money in record time, you'll find her creating magic with fabric and threads, getting her hands dirty, growing what she eats, and frolicking in the waves. Daphne Wells, welcome to the 8 Billion Podcast. How are you doing?
I'm doing well, thank you. Thank you so much for having me. Lovely to be here.
Oh my gosh, I am so sorry for getting so tongue twisted with your bio, but that's the energies that are in place today. So I'm all like, we'll just keep going and flowing with this, because tune into this podcast, guys, and you will know why she's a force of nature. Okay, let me start with this, audience. So everyone knows that I did pre-podcast interviews for everyone in season 5D because I just had an incredible response to it. But when Daphne and I got in our meeting together, we didn't talk anything about her work. It was just like we were kindred spirits. We were as if we had never seen, as if we were just kind of catching up as girlfriends.
Yeah, it was like we'd known each other forever, wasn't it? It was
magic.
Yeah.
We were talking about that because when I read her bio to prep for this interview, I was like, you know what? We never talked about Daphne's work. But I'll tell you, that those make for the best podcasts, simply because you want to know that there's such synergy and a great energy exchange with the person that you're interviewing. That's how you know it's an energetic and frequency match.
Yeah.
And so, Daphne, myself, along with the audience, is going to learn about you in this next hour. Excuse me. So let me ask you first. Would you like to start with how you came to your work and mission now, or would you just like to go ahead and dive into your numerology?
Well, let me share a little bit about my backstory, because that's kind of what 8 billion is a little bit about, isn't it? Is that backstory, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So I grew up in an era where there was a really pre-prescribed road to go down as a woman. You had to get married by a certain age, and you had to have children by a certain age. You had to do all the things. And I grew up not knowing who I was, not liking myself, kind of in a... My parents loved me greatly, and yet it was a really toxic environment. They didn't understand me. I was the odd one out, the freak in the family. And so I ended up marrying and having children, doing all the things, and leaving that marriage. It was abusive on many levels. And at that point, I'd kind of gone through this, well, who am I even? What am I doing in this world? And that took me down a road of really finding out who I was and what my place in the world was. And long journey. long.
It's been a long journey for all of us, believe me, Daphne.
Yeah.
People have been in inside marriages, outside marriages like me, and now that we're all here together.
Yeah. So the last couple of decades outside of a marriage, and yet there's been lots of growth, lots of discovery of myself. And it's been a journey, really, from this very traditional Christian upbringing of this is how life is. There's a life right and a wrong. You either do the right thing and you go to heaven, or you do the wrong thing and you go to hell. Very religious background, not Christian, if you know the difference, like these are the rules, you obey them or else. To the point where our intuition and our inner spirit and higher spirit leads the way, not us. We are spirits having a human experience.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I know for me, in reflection, just in the last few weeks, Daphne, I was just like, wow, to kind of get to that point where you understand that we were raised in a matrix that kind of, down to like the slightest little things in our lives that programmed us to believe we had to fall within these structures. And now you're actually watching a massive awakening of the human race as they're starting to move into starting to understand, this doesn't feel right anymore.
And for someone like for me, that started 2 or 3 decades ago, was like, where do I fit in this world? Because the box that I ended up in, this, I love being a mother. I love that. And yet being in that box, being told that was all there was to life, I don't fit in boxes well.
Don't get me started, because today I just posted something about the feminine energies, because I said, ladies, and I say this with so much love, this is not a time to dim your light, because we have now moved into the age of Aquarius. And it's hard because sometimes I told them that in the post somewhere along down the line. I said, gentlemen, this is not a women's movement by any means. It's us being able to express ourselves in the greatest freedom of creativity and expression. And when we do this, there's a love that comes out of us that really loves them without, unconditionally and without bounds, which helps them move into their feminine space.
Because it's not just a woman thing.
Right.
Men have been put in these boxes as well. And there's a real call for them to reclaim their feminine side, not because we all are a balance of male and female energy.
Yes.
Positive and negative energy, intuition and brain energy. We are wired in different ways. We are a balance of both.
Now, let me ask you, since you had your awakening maybe about 2 to 3 decades ago, did you ever know about what this time frame that we were entering into? Did you have like maybe an inkling about it, or did you know but didn't know when it was going to happen?
I knew the world was going to change so much.
You did?
And I didn't know when. I didn't know the how of it. I just had faith that I needed to stay on this journey, because that was where I was going to find. And where I was. So as a child, I remember hearing voices as in, you are here to help people. You are here to do big things in the world. And I had no idea what it was, And even now I'm like, well, is this it, or is there more? Do you know what I mean?
Oh yeah, absolutely. It's still unfolding.
It's unfolding. But, right from that little girl, I knew that there was more to life, and that the world was changing, and I was a part of that, and I didn't know the how. And I really feel that's a huge part of our journey, is just actually trusting each step that we take. We don't need to know the how. We don't need to know what the end destination looks like.
Yeah.
We need to know that that's our journey, that's our step.
We need
we're here for a bigger reason than us.
Yes. And in the recent times for myself too, it was just really incredible to kind of step into this power. And when I say that, it's a power of really knowing who you are, and then having a deep wisdom, and then also letting go of the fear, like shedding the fear. Like Daphne and I, right before we started recording this, we were talking just about the shift. And so for the audience, this is going to probably be released anywhere between May and August of 2022. We are recording this right after the Virgo full moon and spring equinox. And that has been sometimes the big energy shift and change that has moved us, where many of us that have gone down the spiritual journey could energetically feel it in every ounce and cell of our body. So if you're tuning in, more than likely you felt something because you're attracted to this episode. And for obvious reasons, we're talking and we're going to go deeper into spirituality. And Daphne, of course, has written a book and talked about, she's deeply embedded in numerology, which is really big right now. You're seeing so many angel numbers and people using it. But I just want to commend you, Daphne, for holding that space for 2 to 3 decades, because they say healers, there are some that are going to be just energetically holding the space because they know that the shift is going to happen. And then there are some people like me and you that are going to have more of a public eye role in being vocal, in teaching others, or holding the space and helping them ascend. So,
and I feel like that for me, that part of that journey was holding the space for myself before I could hold it for others.
It's absolutely that.
And it's like, I kind of, almost like a flower. You know how a flower starts off and it sends up and you're like, is there going to be a bud on the end of that? Is that flower going to flower? Because the end of it kind of changes on the end of the shoot, right? You can kind of see, well, it might be, or it might just be another lot of green leaves coming out, right? So you kind of wait. The plant's holding the space, right? The plant knows, but we don't know, right? And our like spirit knows where we're going and when we're going to blossom into that next part of our growth. We don't necessarily know.
Absolutely.
Trust that next step.
In spirituality, or or taking the journey within, a big part of understanding when you get there is you have a deeper understanding if you don't know the how or the when. It's, you have to let the divine know that. And when you look back at it, the timing is really divine. When you look back at the events of your life, you're like, wow, how did, sometimes you might not understand it. It might feel uncomfortable, but it's really designed for your greatest awakening.
And you also go through, so all the things that I went through in my early life, and not to say that they've stopped, there are still things that happen through life that we wouldn't choose necessarily, right? And yet we go through those so that we can, so we have a choice. We can either dwell in that as a victim, or we can use what we learn from that to help others going through similar experiences.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And that's why sometimes this awakening, and I think I had posted that one time, I said Daphne?
Are you right?
Yeah. Oh, for some reason, I'm going to have to edit this. My phone went off. My phone went off and I was like, Daphne, where are you? Because I'm recording from an Apple laptop and my phone is connected. So when it rang, I'm going to have to mute this or figure out how to silence it, because this is the first time that ever happened. Are you still there?
Yes, I'm still here.
What was the last thing that I left off on?
You were talking a lot about not knowing the why, but not knowing the how, but knowing the why.
Not knowing the how, but knowing the why. We could just have this regular conversation, Daphne. I might not even edit it. They're all like, I want to be with those people. Yeah, come over here. It's brighter on this side.
Right?
This is us happy people. We don't judge. We're just like, whatever happens, happens.
Roll with it.
Yeah, we just roll with it, right? But let me start. So in this journey in spirituality, you'll understand that as time goes by, you will release the how and the why, because you'll allow it to unfold. It's that co-creation between you and the universe as you move through the shedding of the programs and healing yourself. But then we promise that that in the end, and there is no end, actually, I should say, that when you reach what you think is the end, there's still more unlayering. But if you've healed a lot of your wounds, it's really such a beautiful place to awaken, because there's a power that's really, you have a really centered place of power where you can navigate from.
And to me, a lot of people talk about layers of the onion that we peel off as we're healing and growing. I like to think of it as a spiral.
Yeah.
So we go around and then we go up and then we go up, because we're changing and growing and evolving, and we're becoming more aware, more awake, our vibration, our energy, everything is changing and uplifting. And so the spiral analogy I find really helpful, because the onion analogy, when I was early in my growth journey, I used to feel like, because you know how we are here to learn the same lessons in life. We have big lessons that we are here to learn in life. And through numerology, of course, I can calculate what those are for people. We can get an idea of that energy of why you're here and what you're here to learn, and how you are to help people, right? That whole energetic, not the mechanics of it, not the how, but the energy behind it. So, and before I knew that, and the onion analogy was given to me. And so I'd work through this particular wound, if you like, this particular thing that needed healed in my life. And then it would come up again after a time. Mm-hmm. And I would automatically, by default, think that I had done something wrong, because I hadn't healed it properly back then. I hadn't done the work back then enough. And what I've come to realize is that that lesson is part of our growth, and we discover new pieces of it that we couldn't see back then, because we get deeper into that wound, if you like. I don't like the word wound, but people relate to it.
Yeah, they do. It's been used here a lot.
Yeah.
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 No, it really is beautiful. And I was just going to say, like, that's so now moving into numerology, how did you get into that?
How did I get into it? So as I said, I heard voices and saw things as a child, right? And that was shut down. And anytime I shared them, it was, well, that's just rubbish. You're just an ordinary person. You're not going to do big things in the world, because I would hear voices telling me things like that. And so I just kind of quieted those, and I still saw and I still heard and I still felt things, and yet I didn't share them with people. And through my journey, the past few decades, I've felt and heard and seen more and more, and been feeling into trusting it, right? Trusting my intuition more and more. And yet there was still this, well, how do I share that with other people? How do I know it's not just my imagination? And I was like, it was almost, so when I came across numerology, I was really curious. I had a numerology reading done, and that gave me lots of ahas about myself. I saw different things about myself, and I accepted myself for who I am, because we're born on a particular date with our energetic DNA, which we can calculate using numerology and your birth date, right? And so that's our energetic DNA. Like, we have our physical one, this is our energetic one. And yet what happens is we come in and we know, like, you're a mum too, right? These beautiful babies are born, they are pure, they are themselves. And then over those first few years, particularly up to 7, we know from human development that children are sponges. They accept everything that's said and shared with them as being real and true. And so those pieces of us that are not seen or are not part of the people in our lives are kind of quieted. And so we're almost conditioned and told who to be. And so we forget who we really are. And this is what happens to a lot of us when we get into adulthood, is we go on this quest to find ourselves. And we start, what we really need to know is our true self. And numerology can tell you that. So when I had that first reading done, it was like, oh, you know, like I saw pieces of myself that had been shut off and squashed by other people through life as being, well, actually, that's who I am. So, you know, you guys can sod off because what you said wasn't real. It was your story, not mine. And so there's this huge, gives you radical permission to be you.
Yes.
Which is huge, you know, if you think about that in today's society.
Yeah.
Lots of people are wandering around wondering who on earth they are and how they fit in the world, right?
Yes.
And then, because numerology isn't just about the numbers and the birth codes, it's also about the deck of cards. So the regular playing cards, there's like a whole nother field of numerology.
And that could, and do you, really quick, Daphne, so do you, when you do someone's numerology, do you shuffle like a tarot card reader and then
you can
take it
do
out?
that. Yes, you can do an intuitive reading for people. And the day you were born, you have a birth card for that day as well. So you have a birth code, which is your a lot of numerologists will call that your life path or your rolling number. I call it your birth code. And, you know, it goes with you through life. But you also have a birth card.
Wow. So, yeah. And you laid this all out in your book?
No, that book is not about numerology. I am at the moment co-authoring four of us numerologists are collaborating on a book about the birth card, because we felt the call that it needed to be out there in the world. So we are in the process of writing that at the moment. And that will be.
Oh, I can't wait for that. When 4 numerologists get together, that is going to be a powerful, powerful book.
Oh, it's going to be magical. Yeah.
It is magical for sure.
And it is what the world needs. Yeah, so the birth card, and that gives you so much more information. And using that information from the birth cards, we can also predict the energy that's coming for you.
You can in the birth card? Okay, Daphne, okay, let me know. Okay, let's talk about this. Because I'm now diving into this for the first time, really. And I've always known about it, but so give me an example of like, so when you have your birth card, how do you find out what your birth card is?
So you can find out what your birth card is by, well, you can message me and I'll tell you what your birth card is.
Oh, perfect. So anyone, including myself, the audience, message Daphne when we give her information, because she's going to tell us what our birth card is. And like what you were saying is that I found that so interesting. It can even predict the future energies that are coming in.
So universally, the universe sends energy. Like the energy, you feel the energy of the world shifting.
Yes, that was for sure, especially those last 2 weeks.
Yeah, so we can calculate the energy that is in the world.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Universally. Now, I do a monthly universal energy forecast. I also then break that down into a weekly one and then do a mini one each day on social media, so that people are aware of what's coming. Because when we know what's coming, we can lean into it and use that to help us, to help life flow easier, right? To help us do what we need to do. Now, so there's this universal energy. And we also wander through life. Like, why are people all so different? Because of your energetic DNA, right? So you wander through life with this energetic bubble around you, almost like this light bulb of energy that goes with you, and it's invisible, right? So your personal energy is different to the universal energy, and they interrelate with each other.
Absolutely. Yes.
So the energy that the universe sends you each day and each year changes, so that you can follow your life journey, learn the lessons you need to learn in life, and share your gifts and magic with the world.
So it's very similar to this. And I equate it because I'm big with astrology, right? And so I'm really big with the 4 elements. I'm a fire sign. So I know during fire seasons, which are December, April, and August, is when my biggest gifts can come out, or when I can really push work out, and it really will work with my energies. But I also know that there's air, right, which is intellect, there's earth, and then there's also water. So during those times, I have to tap into those parts that sometimes are a little bit uncomfortable for me, but I'm moving with those energies. It's the same that what you're talking about with numerology.
Very similar, but very personalized, right?
That's amazing. I'm like, Daphne, I'm going to call you right after this podcast.
But it's really like, it's so empowering for people, because then you can be like, so in this period of time, this is the energy that's coming for me personally. These are the things I've already committed to during this
time frame. Yeah.
How can I use the energy to help me do that? And what else can I, like you said, that period where you can really push work out. So what can I do in this period of time? Because the energy is going to support that better than if I leave it till later on in the year, right? So we can use it in all sorts of different ways.
That's absolutely it. Because I will push out big projects during fire season for me. Yeah. And then during earth season, I work. I mean, don't get me wrong. Yeah, sometimes I want to go against the grain because it's not my natural, it's not my natural element. But if you want to move with the ebb and flow, it's just like what you're saying. If we know our birth card, then we allow to use it during the energies that would serve us the best, and kind of lay low when the energies are not there to serve us the best.
It gives you permission to do that, right?
Absolutely.
So, like the month that we're in at the moment is March, right? We're recording this in March, which is a 9 energy month, which is all about release and letting go.
It's beautiful.
So, you know how you talked about the equinox that happened, and that's like the astrological new year, that equinox where things change.
Yeah,
it's a change of season. So numerology kind of goes in months for the universal energy. So this is a 9, which is the end of a cycle. So it's letting go and also sowing the seeds for the new. So absolutely. April is the 1 energy month. So it's like the numerological new year.
It is. It's almost identical, because I still feel it. Even though the shift was amazing for a lot of us, right? Even Daphne and I were talking about this before we started recording. We're like, hang on, because everything's coming up to the surface. I still feel a lot of the purging, but I feel this like glow and energy that I'm all like, I can't be contained, people. And it's perfect that I'm recording season 5, because this is going to pack it with so much energy to share your guys' work and stories.
And energy goes, Liza, it doesn't have a start, stop. It goes in waves, right? So they overlap.
Yeah, absolutely. It's beautiful. It's beautiful, Daphne. I know sometimes, guys, we're talking about numerology right now, but Daphne is such a beautiful soul. Like I told you, when we had our pre-podcast meeting, we were just talking. I don't think we talked anything about her work. So I said, we're going to get to know you, Daphne. I do want to ask this. Let me go back. So when you were talking about growing up and hearing the voices, and then you said, no, you can't do that, and you're not going to become anything. Would you say that now that you can look back, that was you fighting your ego now? Would you say that was your ego, or did you feel that was another energy?
So that was, like I would share it with my mum or my dad, and they'd be like, well, that's a load of rubbish. You're never going to do that.
Oh, got it. Okay. So it was like family and yeah.
So then later on, it became, I would quiet those voices. I'd be like, well, that's never going to happen. I'm not good enough for that. So it was me later on, and yet was that, it could have been my ego, it could have been my mind telling me that, well, that's not right, because that was what I'd been told.
Yes. Yeah. It becomes a really interesting journey of how to navigate through all of that. And I just want to let the audience know this is why I'm so excited to present this season, because I have found literally a whole group of people that have either grown up with this or at least experienced it, including myself. Mine didn't come out necessarily until I opened up my crown chakra. And then I was like, where did all of you guys come from?
Yeah.
And then now that I have such a deep connection with them, I was like, where have you been all my life?
I know, right? And for me,
Yeah.
it was like, because a lot of people, some people, you know, they will just see things or just hear things. And I kind of have always seen things, heard things, and just felt and known things, right?
Yeah.
So that was that, and the squashing it down as a child. It's no wonder that I lacked trust when I tuned into it more. I was like, well, is that real or is that my imagination? You know?
Yeah.
And this is where, so how does numerology help me trust my intuition? I was kind of in that question that you asked when you asked, you know, how did you come to numerology? And so numerology for me has kind of become this container. So if I doubt something, particularly like when I'm working with clients, of course, I'll have done calculated their numerology and shared with them as much as they're ready for at that point in time, right? Because there's so much to share. And when I receive a message that's for the client, I can run that quickly through the filter of, does this fit with their, you know, if I doubt it, I can run it past does this fit with their code?
Yeah.
And if it's aligned with it, then, you know, I share, right? And so for me, it became that safe container where I can really play with my intuition and let it fly.
I know. And
because, and that's the other thing I love about numerology is it's this mix of the science, the calculations, and intuition. So they really come together, you know? You calculate and you get the energy, but then it's like full on intuition. So what does this mean for this person at this time? What do they need to hear?
Right.
You know? And so it really is the safe container rather than me receiving a message and being like, well, are they really ready for that? Because when I've done the calculations behind it, I know that that person is ready for that message.
Oh, before you even say it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've been coming across that statement too lately. I'm all like, I know that I know that I know. That's why my spirit guides are like, then if you know, then why do you have fear? I was like, oh, because it's still part of the program in my body that I've got to release. I know, it's kind of crazy, right?
And sometimes that little bit of fear like that is healthy in some ways, isn't it? Because that means that, to me, that means that I'm still at the edge. Yeah. Because, you know, we talk a lot in growth and personal development about that comfort zone, right? Yeah. And growth won't happen while we're in it.
100%.
When we feel a little bit of fear or nervousness, it's like, oh, I'm at the edge. I'm still growing. Do you know what I mean? Like, I'm not sinking back into my comfort zone and staying comfortable.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, ascension is inevitable when you keep growing through that space. Now, for me, and maybe this might help the audience, and depending on where you guys are in your journey, like for me, when I feel certain things like emotions, I just release it, whether it's crying, whether I'm fully aware of what it is that I'm crying about, or I'm just feeling emotions, because it's a release in energy. And so what I'll do is I'll ask my guides, you know, whatever this is, it's coming up to the surface. If anything that I need to work on, I need to know, just bring it to my attention. It could be moving through energies that fast. But again, I know everyone's journey is different. So sometimes they're going to be heavier things that you have to deal with. Right.
And of course, a lot of us were brought up to don't show your emotions. Don't let anyone know how you feel.
Oh, gosh, the suppression is so real, Daphne.
Isn't it?
Yeah.
You know? And so that conditioning, to be able to cry when we feel that, to be able to laugh when we feel it, to be able to be angry when we need to be, to shout and scream occasionally, the release that comes with that. And I don't mean shouting and screaming at other people. I mean shouting and screaming at the universe, at God, at whoever, just at past memories, at whatever. I'm blessed. I live like just a few minutes walk from the beach. And that has been huge for me, that healing journey of walking on the beach each day and frolicking in the waves and screaming and shouting when I need to.
Did you do that, screaming and shouting outside?
Oh, I have walked along the beach screaming and shouting and stomping my feet when I've needed to release energy.
Wow, that's incredible.
Yeah, just and it's so healing and incredible to actually release that, because we are not allowed, or we don't allow ourselves, because society has told us it's not good, to shout and scream. Like to go out in your backyard and shout and scream, you probably have all the neighbors wondering what was going on, right?
Yeah.
You go down to the beach and do that, and even if there's other people on the beach, they're not going to hear a lot over the waves.
No, that's incredible, because the beach for me, the ocean has been very healing for me for the last 3 years. I now understand why I was brought here by the universe, that I could live about 10, 15 minutes away from the beach and be there every day. But I
understand why I ended up here as well. It's been incredibly healing for me.
Yeah, I just can't, like, even if I have to take breaks and then walk outside, it's different than me looking at the ocean, because the vastness of the ocean for me is just limitless. And so when I feel like maybe I'm visualizing a release, it's just like, okay, it's out. You know what I mean? Whereas here, it's like a wall. You're like, okay, it's still here.
And the other thing I love about the ocean is that it's never the same. Like the beach is never the same, because it changes with each tide, right? The high tide mark is never the same, because it changes with the moon and the air pressure and the season and all that kind of stuff. It's like, it's an ever-changing thing. It's a reminder that change is inevitable in life, right?
Yeah, absolutely, 100%. It's beautiful once you see that, when you can see it from that perspective. But I know, like I said, I acknowledge the fact that everyone's on different paths and journeys right now. We're the ones that kind of got it a little bit early, Daphne. So that's why we're like, hey, this is beautiful, everyone. But we're here. That's what I wanted to say to the audience. We're here. We've been collectively holding the energetic space for everyone's healing, including our own. I mean, don't get me wrong. It doesn't mean like we live this amazing, like all the time happy, because we have to move through all of that stuff. But it's been, I know everyone at least that I've put on this podcast for this season has done an exquisite job at going through their journey, and then knowing that they're serving the greater good by holding that energetic space for everyone, including you, Daphne. Really quick, I know these hours go by, or these podcast recordings go by really quick. One of the last things that I wanted to talk about were the women's circles you're birthing. You talk about that.
Yes, I've really been feeling called to birth these little circles of women, because if you go back in history, women did that. Like they used to meet and make, like someone was getting married in their village, they'd all get together for I don't know how many afternoons it took them and make them a quilt, right? Back in the days of hand stitching, right? They've done that for eons, for time immemorial. And we've been really isolated in society, particularly these past few decades when, as women, we've been mothers, we've been wives or partners, we've been working as well, we've had all the other things that are part of our life, and we've lost that close connection, those intimate relationships with other women where we could sit around and have conversations about what matters. So I really have been called to do this, and I have done this on and off the last few years for for women in business. And what I really am doing now is 2 different circles I'm birthing. One is for mums who've had relationship status changes. And I'm, that's back, taking me back to when I was a solo mother. And just life is overwhelming at that point. And you wonder if you are ever going to find time for you, because you're so busy working, providing for your children, being as good a mum, being a great mum. And it's harder work when you're on your own, obviously, and doing all the things. And yet, when do you get a life? When do you get a chance for you? And a lot of us at that stage don't believe that we are even worthy of anything for us, that we deserve anything more than just providing.
Yeah. And
so that's what I'm really excited about, because that's been part of my mission. One of my dreams has been to really help those women since I was in that position myself. So and the other one is for visionary leaders, so really intuitive, spiritual women who have gifts to share. And so many of us in that position feel pressured, feel unworthy of charging money for our skills and our gifts. And yet if we continually give them away, it's a whole vicious circle, because then we're still working in a job. We're still, like, the more that we can accept money, accept payment for sharing our magic with the world, the more people we can share that magic with. And it's a belief in feeling really safe that we can ask and receive for those gifts. So
no, exactly. It's interesting that you say that, because I'm going through that right now. My income was generated through real estate. And as I make this shift moving into full mission, I'm like, how do I ask? Or like, am I going to be received this way? Because I've been known as real estate for all my career. And so,
that's the thing, isn't it? To sell real estate is easy. I don't mean it's easy, but
no,
you know what I mean?
You're absolutely right. It's like the back of my hand. I could do that, but my passion isn't there anymore,
And so and the reason I say it's easy is that people want houses, right? It's a physical thing. And yet your passion, why you're here, that you now want to move more into, how do you even communicate that in a way that people want to pay money for it? There's a whole lot of work in there.
Yes, that's exactly the whole thing I'm going through right now.
Yeah.
I've got to talk to you about that offline. So anyone in the audience who's going through that, or is even interested in numerology, you've got to contact Daphne. So Daphne, do you want to, I could go on and on in these podcasts forever, because I absolutely love everyone, most especially from season 5. It's been...
And you and I could talk all day.
That's what I was going to say. We probably might even forget that we're recording a podcast. Daphne and I were just like, the first meeting, we were just like talking about all this other stuff. And I was like, we didn't even talk about Daphne's work. She's such a lovely, beautiful soul. I know for sure we've lived lifetimes together.
We have.
Yeah. We've been in women's circles together.
We have, and now we're reconnected in this lifetime.
Now we're reconnected in this lifetime on a podcast, all the way halfway across the world.
Yeah.
But it feels like you're just right here in the room with me. But Daphne, could you please let the audience know how they can get a hold of you if they'd like to get a hold of you for services or even learn more about your book?
Yeah, sure. So my website is my name, daphnewells.com, and you can email me at daphne@daphnewells.com. You can find me on Facebook as Daphne B. Wells, and Instagram as that as well.
Awesome. Well, we are going to have those links in the description or in the show notes. So keep a lookout for that over there too, if you'd like to get a hold of Daphne. But Daphne, thank you from the bottom of my heart, truly. Or even if there is a bottom to my head, we're infinite beings.
We are. We're infinite beings.
We're infinite beings.
Thank you
And
so much for having me.
Oh, you're very welcome. You will always have a platform and a voice here on 8 billion. But to the audience, I'd like to thank you for tuning in to this week's episode of 8 billion, and we will catch you on the next one. Thank you for listening to today's episode of the 8 Billion Podcast. If it's moved you in any way, please share your thoughts or give us a review on Apple, Spotify, or YouTube. To listen to more episodes, go to 8billionpodcast.com, or to learn more about our mission, go to 8billionproject.com.